Hello to all of you, my name is Maxim and in today's video I am going to provide you more information about the offensive actions of the Russian army, how can go the Ukrainian offensive, and such of important information about political news and a new package of aid from the United States to Ukraine and the help from the countries from NATO and European Union to Ukraine. How has it improved? Today we have reports of bombing in this area with drones in a Russian base and airfield. Also, the Russians bombed Kherson. And we have news from Melitopol that a bridge was blown up in this area of the city near the river, and the car of a collaborator was blown up too. And a Russian base was bombed. Also, I will analyze the attack in Vuhledar from the Russians. As you can see, this is what changed in these days. And as you can see, here it's a road to the fields. And the Russians are trying to get into that road. So, in order to take that road and trying to surround Vuhledar and get the supply line from Vuhledar, they are attacking in that area, and I will now put you a video about that. So you can see that the Russian tactics are quite old because, for example, the United States Army, maybe they will do with another tools and with another troops. For example, if the United States or an army from NATO has better tactics, they maybe will do like that. For example, they will strike some kind of artillery positions from the Ukrainians with counter-battery fire, so they suppress the Ukrainian positions and block the Ukrainian artillery fire. Also, in the night, they will use night vision or thermal cameras to clear the mines in all these parts of the front and try to clear all this part of mines. But the Russians are very poorly trained, they have bad officials, and they don't have night vision cameras and things like that, so their only tactics is go through the road and anything more. Frontal attack. And when they fail the attack in these areas, they try to retreat. They abandon her partners in this area and let him to die, and they run to the house of her moms and try to escape. This is normal for a person, but a soldier it's trained to didn't do that. And they are like civilians, they didn't apply any tactics. They only advance, shoot, and if they receive shoots from the Ukrainians, they run like babies. And they get some kind of mines and die and escape if anyone survives. So I will put you the video now. So as you can see, the Russians aren't applying any tactics. They only attack in a line and they don't apply any tactics. So if the first one of the column tank is destroyed, the Russian troops run through the fields and go back and retreat. So they didn't apply any tactics, any modern tactics. You have seen in the video how the Russians are attacking. So then we will go to Marinka. The Ukrainians have made some kind of counterattack, and in the pro-Russian news they are saying that maybe the Ukrainians will start an offensive and take all this area. I don't think so. I think maybe it's only a small counterattack, so the Ukrainians can gain some of time and try to regroup new battalions and try to train the troops so have more fight power and in this area. Also, the same it's in Avdiivka. The Ukrainians are maintaining the front line with poor troops and mobilized soldiers, territorial defense, and things like that. Also in Bakhmut. So the Ukrainians are preparing in their back new units with better equipment, NATO equipment like Leopards, Challengers, Max Pro vehicles, Humvees, and things like better that the Russians have. And we have information that the Russians take the central building of Bakhmut, the administrative center, and the Russians claim that they took all Bakhmut. The Russians confirmed and the Ukrainians confirmed that the Russians controls 17% of the city, which has before the war 30,000 of people living here. So I think that it's not a city, it's like a big village or a very small city, and it's not very important for tactical and strategical objectives. It's like only for the Russians to make their propaganda and say that they win some kind of battle. But they lost the bear units from Wagner because Wagner is the final unit, the left one that can make advances because the Russian army with the mobilized soldiers they didn't have any kind of offensive power. So the last tactic is use Wagner to advance with mid can for cannons and try to take this road or things like that. But they didn't know, and now we know that the Ukrainians didn't use this road and they have tunnels through the salt mine in Bakhmut and they are trying reinforcements and supply through the mines. So of salt. So the Ukrainians didn't need this road. It was only a distraction from the Russians. Also, we have information that the Ukrainians are creating new offensive battalions in this area and in the village of Nenorikivka and Olenivka. Also, the Russians are making a small attack in all this part of Crimea. They are approaching that the Ukrainians are regrouping and creating new offensive battalions, and they approach this and fight versus the Ukrainian poorly trained troops, which they are territorial defense units. But Ukraine it's doing it better because Ukrainians are more intelligent and if you want to attack in the front line, so for example, you can do things like that for the Ukrainians, surround Crimea from the back, or like that, and try to take all this area, and the Russians have to retreat or surrender. But the Russians are so dumb, and they only try to make frontal attacks, and frontal attacks. Only frontal attacks. There's no tactic. I am not a soldier. I only like these things from military, and I think that I can make a better tactics than the Russians are using. So you too. It's not as difficult as you think. It's only don't attack a city of 15,000 and of 30,000 of people frontal because, as you know, a bad tank or a bad soldier in a city it's the same that a very well trained soldier because you don't have space to do maneuvers, you can't do very good tactics. So the poorest tactics will work as good as the best. So if you have good soldiers, you didn't use it in the city and kill it with snipers, something like that. You can use it to pass in the fields or trying to surround the city and the bad troops they fight in the city and keep the Russian troops or the Ukrainian troops in their positions and the another big group with good soldiers they surround the units. So the Russians are using quite bad tactics in this part of the front line. And the Russians are losing their last offensive power in order to try to the Ukrainians make the Ukrainians use their new brigades offensive, which are trained in all this area and in the south part, like the Ukrainians are like in here, and they have more than 18,000 of troops, which are provided with good operational situation awareness, with quite new tanks, T-90s, T-80s, Leopards, and things like from NATO, and they have a very good offensive power. And they are being trained and fighting in maneuvers, and they are trying to make some kind of training so they can make a better offensive in the south. Also, I will explain you how I think that might be the offensive from the Ukrainians. We have some kind of options. For example, the first one, and which you know, and you think that it will be, but I don't think that will be like that. It's like the Ukrainians, for example, from Horikhiv, of Huliapole, or Versa Novoselica, they can make some kind of proving attack near Rihiu through this road or through this road to Tokmak, which is a very important city. But I don't think so. Why? Because the Ukrainians are not as dumb as the Russians. I think the Ukrainians are more intelligent. I don't say that I discard 100 this possibility, but I think that the Ukrainians can do a better tactics than that. For example, I can say that I think that a better tactic maybe will be I know that for example, for counterintelligence, I know people, and I can say that it's smarter to confirm the thoughts of another person than change it. So, if the Ukrainians are going to attack in another part of the front line, and the Russians say that they will attack on this part, it's easier to confirm their thoughts or their information which Ukrainians will go attack here than change the ideas from the Russians and say no, 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 we will attack in the river. So I think that the Ukrainian intelligence can approach that and send wrong information from the Russians, make distraction, move troops in this area of the front lines. Maybe because of this, the Ukrainians are training in this area of the front line. And I think that the Ukrainian offensive can be like that. For example, the Ukrainians have made a strong attack in the direction of Svatov and Starobilsk in the north part of Lugansk in Ukraine and a small kind of attack or a big attack in this part of the front line, but will be so important. And the Russians will say, "Oh fuck, we have some kind of attacks here and here. Which we have to do? Which part of the front do we have to protect?" And they will say, "Okay, generals, we have Crimea here. It's very important for us. So the north part of Lugansk, there is not a lot of people, not resources, and Crimea is very important for us and for Putin. So they will say, okay, we will protect this part of the front line. They will send reinforcement through the Rostov-on-Don, from Donbass, from DPR, LNR, and they will reinforce this part of the front line. Maybe units from here will go to here, and the Ukrainians can make a small kind of action in Kherson and Holopristan, in Kimber Split, and the Russians will say, okay, it's small counterattack, Ukrainians are trying to keep their troops in this part of the front line, and the real attack is here, and they are only trying to distract us, and they will make anything. Or, like, move a small number of troops to this area and say, okay, it's small bridgehead, we can sustain it, we can counterattack it in some days when we destroy the Ukrainians counterattack here, and they will don't care a lot of from this attack, for example. And the Ukrainians can approach it, and for example, in this area in Kimber Split, they have only 20 kilometers. So if you put some kind of artillery here or air defense, they can cover this part of the front line. And with they use boats to make a bridgehead, so they only have to transport kind of food and small ammunition and don't have to use the artillery ammunition, which is quite kilograms, very half weight. They weigh a lot of, and they can approach this and make a bridgehead. And then when the Russians say, "Oh fuck, the Ukrainians are advancing here towards this part and going to Crimea or things like that," they start to move troops from here to here to here to here, and the Russians general will say, "What we have to do? We have a Ukrainian bridgehead here. The Ukrainians are striking very strong in this part of the front line. The Ukrainians are making big attack in this part of the front line and in this, and they will don't know what to do, and it's very good for the Ukrainians. Why? Because when you do an offensive, the most part of the offensive is surprise the enemy. And when you surprise the enemy and the generals have four attacks in the bases of the Russian generals in Moscow, they will say, "We don't know how to destroy the Ukrainian attack. We can only, for example, destroy three or four." And they will don't know what to do. And in these hours, when he will be shouting and crying and don't knowing what to do, the Ukrainians have 24 hours to advance. Simply advance without a lot of resistance. The Russian troops, which are mobilized soldiers, they didn't have a decision power making abilities, they didn't know tactics, and they will say, "Oh, the Ukrainians are advancing. I want to die. I don't want to die." And they will run. Maybe. And there will be disorder on this part of the front, and the Ukrainians may through in the Russian positions, and when the orders from Moscow will be taken, the soldiers simply will say, "No, I don't want to lose my life. I will run to Crimea." And with these distractions and these Ukrainian tactics, and with HIMARS artillery fire, ground attack with support of artillery from long-range missiles in Crimea, drone attacks, reconnaissance attacks, the Ukrainians can get into this part of Ukraine and retake it. I think that it can be some kind of operation like that, and the Ukrainians can make things like that. So, because of a very strong part of the Ukrainian army, around 90,000 soldiers, are trained in Berlin, Warsaw, in all the Occidental countries, also in London, in United States. So we have like 100,000 soldiers trained in NATO with new tactics, with officers trained in NATO. We have American generals supporting our generals to try to improve their tactics in Kiev. They are sending from satellite image from the Russian trenches in all this part of the front line. They are providing quite good information and supporting the tactics of the Ukrainian army and making some kind of decisions to try to improve the Ukrainian army. And those tactics are used by the United States Army, and the United States Army may say to the Ukrainians, "I would help you to improve your operation or your counteroffensive." Also, we have in the political news, the Finland, the country, today have joined in the NATO, so they are protected. And the shares a lot of frontier with Russia, and the NATO frontier within Russia and the NATO. It's quite big now with the accession of Finland. Also, the United States announced new package from Help for Ukraine of 2.6 billion. We don't know exactly what will have this package, but I have information that I found in Twitter and very reliable sources. So they are saying that will be refueling trucks and kind of ammunition for artillery and HIMARS rockets. So these trucks are very offensive because with some of javelins you can defend from the Russian offensive. But if you want to attack, you have to get with you your refuel, your gas station, your like things that you need for eating and for refueling your tanks, because you, when are moving in offensive, you can't think that you will have all done. You have to get all the things with you and bring the things with you. And this is very important to have fuel and refuel in the offensive actions. So these tracks are very important for the Ukrainian new offensive. Thank you for watching my video, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and see you in the next time. Bye bye.